Hello, and welcome to Making Creativity Pay, the podcast where we talk to people in creative industries about how they promote and market their work. I'm Dan Barnett, and this episode I spoke with comedian Rosalie Minnitt. We talk about her character comedian Clementine, and Clementine's Valentine's Day show on Radio 4, as well as the differences between playing Clementine on stage and on radio. We also talk about Rosalie's experience of the Edinburgh Fringe, as well as the challenges and joys of taking Clementine on tour at theatres across the country. I started by asking Rosalie to give a brief introduction about herself.
So my name is Rosalie, and I am I never really quite know how to describe myself, but I'm a sort of comedy-ish. I'm a comedian and writer, but I do kind of comedy plays and comedy characters, and I kind of stumbled on into this career, I think, in some capacity. And I kind of had this idea for a character, put it on about 4 years ago, and I've sort of been learning how to do comedy retroactively ever since, which is sort of how I got into it. But yeah, that's kind of my background. That's not a very inspiring description.
Well, no, you're doing all right. It's kind of it's working out.
It's working.
It's working. Yeah, whatever you're doing is definitely working. So yes, so we're recording in the middle of February. So a couple of days ago, you had a special on Valentine's Day for Lady Clementine. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that show and about the character in general.
Yeah, so the character was sort of a lockdown creation, in that she sort of came from that hysteria that none of us really want to talk about. But I kind of had this idea to, I always loved history. I studied it at uni, and I had this idea to create a character that I think was like the time when we were getting lots of Bridgerton out, and I liked the idea of having a sort of historical character who was like actually quite uninspiring and or just sort of trapped in the confines of her own time. And initially it kind of started as a sort of period drum parody, and then sort of the more I did it, the more it kind of became a really fun way to talk about like present dating and what it means to be a woman. And it kind of I ended up sort of uh kind of wrestling with all of these like big questions in the present day, like through the show, which was really kind of unexpected and not what I had initially set out to do. And then I've kind of like been sort of finding the character on stage ever since. So I think initially it was kind of, I wrote it all down and I did it as a play, and then I sort of kind of took to doing lots of gigs around like London and different places in the UK, and kind of have sort of been trying to cut my teeth at it ever since, and hopefully I'm getting better at it. But it's, yeah, it's really this art form, like, which I'm sure everyone has said, but it's one of those things where like you really do only get better from hours and hours and hours of being on stage. And I think it's so difficult to see as yourself like how you're improving. But I did a show this weekend. I've basically toured it. I've twice now, the show that I did initially in 2023 in Edinburgh. And I went back to bigger venues this year. So I did Bath Theatre Royal and Theatre Clwyd in January. And then I was invited to go to this theatre in Wolverhampton. And I'm always a little bit like nervous about going to places where I'm not entirely sure how the show is going to land. And that was kind of, I don't know whether that came from a sort of sense of the fact that I didn't know anyone in the audience. Like sometimes you always know that there's going to be at least one person in there. So I was a bit nervous, and it ended up just being such a fun show. And I it was like the most fun I've had on stage in ages. And the audience was so giving and so generous, and it was so it honestly like kind of restored my faith in humanity a little bit, because it was so like that these kind of people who had probably just seen it in a brochure had just taken a chance on it, and they were just, they went with me, and it was so nice and it was so funny, and everyone was, all the audience were really funny, and it was, I left feeling like that I'd had such a kind of special connection, and it really reminded me why I wanted to do it, and why like the arts is important. And yeah, the kind of heartbreak of, they were telling me about how like the theatre has lost lots of funding and that they really struggle to get people in because people don't have any money. And in some ways the show being that good sort of broke my heart even more, because I was like, there's clearly an appetite, and this stuff does work outside of London. And I think sometimes you get into this bubble that it's, either you do it in Edinburgh or London, and then regional touring is a waste of time. But I have like such a different view on it. I love it, and it was such a yeah, it was such a special weekend actually for me. I went on a tangent, but that's, yeah, it was just such a,
That's,
it really, after having done the character and the show for quite a long time, I think it's easy to get a bit like bored of it. and it was on in that kind of really unassuming theatre, and it wasn't sold out, and it was like a kind of random collection of people. I just kind of felt the magic of it again, and it made
Yeah.
me excited, and I was like, "This is why I'm doing it," and it was really, really nice.
You talk about developing the character there. I mean, was it one of a number of things you had kind of going and that kind of grew, or did you like from the start think this has got legs and kind of put your time into it?
I kind of had like a weird fixation on it. I don't know what I just kind of had this thing where I was like, that I just kind of kept coming back to this name and this character, and I have like a diary from like years ago where I just had kept on writing it down, and I was like, you got to do something with this, or like you got to write this thing. So I kind of had a feeling that like I had also just this kind of, yeah, I think when you get to that point in your life where you're like, I know I love performing. I don't know how to break into this industry. I've kind of got nothing to lose. I sort of went into it being like, and it's so difficult to make that leap to put yourself out there in front of people, and people will just think you're a bit mad. But I kind of went with it as a sort of like, well, I've got nothing to lose here, and maybe it'll be awful, but at least I'm trying. And I think so much of that energy went into the character in the show of this kind of like quite delusional blind faith in like trying. And for whatever reason it just kind of stuck. And also I think I tried doing stand up a little bit. I'd done comedy at uni, and I knew I loved making people laugh, and I knew I loved that part of it. But when I'd done stand up, I felt like I didn't really want to talk about my own life, and I felt as though, people bring so many assumptions to you when you're on stage, and they can either, they think that you're from one place, and they think that your point of view is one thing, and it's really difficult to control the narrative of how you're perceived. And I found that lack of control really frustrating, especially as like a woman on stage where all you're doing is trying to make people laugh. I think people bring so much baggage to you. So I was like, well, if they're going to bring baggage, I'm going to bring baggage. And I did it in the form of that character. And it feels as though you kind of like wrestle back a bit of control. And also in some ways it's a bit of a protection for myself as well, because if they don't like the character, then it's not like me that they don't like. And I think at least at the moment that feels like a much healthier way for me to exist on stage and express myself. And I know a lot of people kind of accuse people of like hiding behind a character, but for me it's more just that like it allows me to I feel very free when I do it. I feel like I can take off a lot of the um yeah, a lot of the constraints that you have in everyday life. I like can say things I'd never say. I find it like less of a stepping behind something and more like stepping in front of something. And if I find it really freeing. Um, and also like it's a bit of a separation between like church and state, which is good because I don't want to slide into that character too much.
You just had the special on Radio 4.
Yeah.
How did that come about, and how did you find that different, in an audio medium versus a live stage presence?
It was quite a lot harder than I had anticipated. I think also because the character is so it's so like the live show is so much about this kind of connection with the audience, and also you can get away with a lot of jokes if you're like a little bit cheeky or a little bit charming, and I think a lot of it is a little bit on a knife's edge. And it was really difficult to also find a way to explain the kind of aesthetic of the character in the show without people seeing it. And I also really wanted it to feel different to the show, and for it to feel as though it was like the idea was also that it's a pilot, so it was potentially like a kind of new way of seeing and feeling and experiencing the character. And we weren't pitching a sitcom, so we wanted to pitch a kind of like dating show situation, but then that also had kind of like sitcom energy around it, and that you could have people coming in and leaving. Um, and yeah, it was really difficult actually. I think I also am not someone who I'm like a podcast listener, but I'm not really a Radio 4 comedy listener. I didn't really grow up with it. So I had to that I kind of like got myself schooled in a lot of the um I guess like the format and how it works. And I think it was also quite difficult to find a way for it to stay true to the character whilst also hoping to appeal to Radio 4 listeners that aren't necessarily what my audience would be. And I think like that tussle was quite difficult, like making it feel as though it felt true to the character, um, but also invited people in. I found quite difficult. But yeah, it was really fun, and it was really, like, I think it really tested me and it really stretched my skills, and I think, it's one of those things that you also I'm getting more comfortable with just trying stuff with it, and seeing what works and seeing what sticks, and having a much healthier relationship with, like, trying and failing and throwing things out. And I think as I'm like currently working on a new show, and I know the character works, but I don't know where else to take her, and I'm excited about the prospect of just doing that live and trying it out. So I think I've come into the new year with a lot more of yeah, I'm excited to fail a little bit, which is quite it seems a bit crazy, but yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at.
And you talked about, kind of being partway through the tour at the moment, of your original Edinburgh show. Looking through social media, saying you kind of initially had it planned. I think it was either earlier in 2025, but it didn't quite get off the ground. I mean, putting a tour together is obviously a big logistical and financial kind of thing. I mean, how hard have you found it?
So yeah, the show initially went to Edinburgh in 2023, and then it got lots of runs at Soho. And I had already had some theatres get in touch and say that they were interested in the show. And so then I was like, well, maybe I'll do a new one or I'll bring it back. So then in 2024, I brought the show back for like a half run and got lots of offers from theatres who were interested in having it. And so I applied for funding to go to all of these places, and I didn't get it. So, and I didn't really have anyone to help me at the time, so I was sort of just trying to figure out how I could do the most amount of dates with the budget I had on my own back, and also, like, working at the same time. So I kind of picked, I think I did about 5 or 6 venues that I could, like, afford to go to, and I every date I kind of, like, had, like, a hodgepodge of people that helped me get there and helped me get back. So it was a bit of a logistical nightmare, but it was also like, I think a lot of people again said to me, like, regional touring is just more trouble than it's worth. And I think it's made me so much better as a performer, but it's also made me, I think, the fact that people come out from often like much further away to get to those theatres and choose to like spend an evening with you. I just think it means so much more to me, and I think it's made me and like I said before, like realize like why I want to do it. And then I was approached by a production company who had connections with theatres, and then they were like, "Would you like to go to some bigger venues this year, and we can help with the finances of it?" Which has obviously been so much easier than it was last year. So that's nice to now feel as though I've got like a bit more support, and I think again it just speaks to this thing that like I'm now looking at building my second show, and a lot of people are like, that it's taken you so long. But I'm also like, I've been working full time and I haven't had the money. And I think like I'm much more comfortable with accepting the fact that like these things might take me longer than other people because of the situation I'm in. Yeah, I wasn't able to do a proper tour, so I did what I could. And now I'm doing a proper tour, and like you can see the progression, but obviously when you're in it, it feels like you're falling behind. But and yeah, I've just done everything at my own pace, and also just sort of didn't wanna take no for an answer, so I was kept on doing it again and again and again until someone listened.
Have you found, like you said, if you did the original one in 2023, went back for a part run in 2024. I mean, did you then feel the pressure that I need to have something new in 2025?
Yeah, I did, and I wanted to go, but I just didn't have the money, and also, I think, um, I think for me, I know what I know why people do new shows, obviously, like, they get bored of it and they wanna move on, but, like, I think where I was and where I am is that, like, I still really love this character. And it was really useful for me to be able to like learn how to improvise as the character and live in the character whilst having a structure of a show I knew really well. So like now it's gone from it being really heavily scripted to me kind of jumping from scene to scene from the jokes I know, but also having fun with the audience and feeling really comfortable. So it was also just a really good way, I think, for me to get better within like a structure that felt comfortable. And I really benefited from that, and I think, um, I'm now like, it's kind of an unconventional way to do it, but I really, I'm really glad I did it like that, and I really, like I think, I also just felt like the show didn't get enough when it first did it, so I just kept on doing it until I was satisfied.
That makes a lot of sense. So, like I said, it's mid-February now. There's already some tickets for sale for various shows at the Fringe. Is is Clementine 2.0 a lock? Is that definitely happening, or are you still?
I think she's happening. I'm still writing it in a huge way, but I just feel like I think it's the right year to go, and I feel really comfortable and confident with the character. I don't know really where I'm going to take her yet, but I've got lots of ideas, and I'm really like I'm really excited just to like try stuff out. But I'm hoping it's going to come to fruition. Um, I think as you know, the Fringe is such a broken system, and the fact that we have to be having conversations about it in like the year before um is just absurd. And I'm kind of, I think, having done Fringe on my own and like having self-produced it and having done really well in Edinburgh without any of that help, I think you kind of see it for the sort of like farce it is. Like it should be this amazing place where people can try stuff out and get better, and there's no point in, like, technically there's no point in bringing a finished show to a festival. You're going to do the same thing every day, so really you should bring an unfinished show and then have it finished by the end, but it doesn't work like that anymore. um but yeah, I hope so. I'm feeling positive about it and putting it out into the universe.
Yeah, and I know you've done some work as a director and creative consultant with other people on other shows. I mean, did you find that kind of doing that helped your own stuff as well? It's often the way in things. If you talk, if you, I say if you tell someone, but if you discuss something with someone, then you kind of almost kind of learn stuff yourself as you're going along.
Yeah, I think it really, I think it also helps you kind of solidify like what your own voice is, because you see it in comparison to what other people like. So much of this is, I think, people trying to find their individual voice and what makes them um and like I've had a lot of people who've done shows since I've done my show that are quite similar to my show, and it took me a really long time to like find the voice of my show. So when I see it in other people's work, I know it's mine because I know what I did to get there. um and I think like when I've worked with other people, it's really nice to help them figure that out. And I think like, but it's not even like just specific about joke writing, but it's about like what kind of jokes do you want to make? Like you can make loads of jokes, but what are the jokes you want to talk? Well, what do you want to talk about? And what do you want to push? What are your boundaries? And like, what kind of artist do you want to be? Because I think often like you can be pushed to just talking about things or making jokes about things because it's easy, or you've got the joke and people are laughing at it. But like, I think you then get to the point where you're trying to think about what what kind of person and what kind of artist do you want to be, and what what do you want to like stand for in your work? And I've really enjoyed that element of it, because I think, yeah, you basically are often just talking to yourself in those conversations. You're telling yourself what you need to hear. So I've really enjoyed it. I've also like done quite a lot of workshops recently, which I've really enjoyed, because it also kind of makes you realize how far you've come, because I think you sometimes forget that you do know what you're talking about. Um, and I did one really fun one recently with just like lots of really interesting women who'd like had really fantastic careers and like done lots of really impressive things, and none of them had done comedy before. And it was so nice because everyone was like really brave and really vulnerable, and really trusted me. And it was just such a, I think everyone got something out of it. And it was such a, yeah, again, like I felt like I was really doing, like I was reminded why I had started doing it in the first place, which was really nice.
And I think if it's this time next week or more or less about you're doing Slumber Party with Charlotte Crop. I've had Charlotte
Yeah, yeah,
on a
she's
previous
great.
episode. And I mean, she was great to chat to. And what can people kind of expect from that evening?
Have you been to the night before?
I haven't been to the night before, no, but I've kind of seen online.
It's honestly one of the nicest comedy nights I've been part of. It's like such a, I'm really hoping that people come, because I think we're like trying to figure out how to explain what it is, and because it's got such a cult following in Manchester, people love it. That trying to explain like what it is to people in London is kind of like our next task. But it would be like combination of lots of brilliant acts, and then also games, and just a night that I think people, and hopefully we get the same kind of audience, but a night that people can really just leave all of their worries outside and have like a silly sleepover with the girls.
I think you talk about workshops and stuff there. I know you did the Soho Theatre Labs experience. I've spoken to quite a few people who've done it on the show, and everyone's very effusive in their praise about it. I mean, do you find it a useful experience?
Yeah, I found it really useful when I did it in 2023 for I did the Edinburgh lab. Um and I found it like I think it's what's so great about it, that specific one, is that it breaks down a lot of the gatekeeping to Edinburgh. And I think it makes you feel like you're going in with some support from, especially from other performers that you meet there. Um and I think that the the like, even just having people up there that if you don't know anyone, it makes all the difference, and having people who can come to your shows and you can share flyering with. Um, I really loved it, like, it made such a difference for me. And then I also did a lab, way back when, before lockdown, actually, which I still sort of, like, see sometimes bump into people from it, and, like, they've ended up doing lots of comedy as well. But yeah, I love it. I think it's super helpful, and I wish there was more like that existed for people to help them, um, just break down so many misconceptions. And I think one of the biggest things about Edinburgh, which I, like, don't really know how to do without ruffling loads of feathers, is that there's just so much you're told that you need to pay for, which you just don't, or so much you're told that you need to get, which I just think is you don't. So I like what was nice about that is that, like, there was a lot of crowdsourcing, and people were just doing stuff for each other, and we all ended up saving lots of money, which was great. Um, so it felt like a real community, which I really enjoyed.
And so you won the Funny Women Comedy Shorts Award last year. I mean, how do you find social media and short form video and all that kind of stuff? Is it something you can just enjoy and put out, or does it feel like a grind sometimes?
I feel like social media is such a funny one with comedy. I mean, I'm sure, like, people talk about it all the time, that it's, like, so annoying that people who've got loads of followers then end up getting loads of. I think it's a when I think you often just go to auditions, and then you get to the last two, and then someone with loads of followers will get the part, which is, like, really frustrating. So I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with it. I think it's so much easier to make short form content that goes viral than it is to make a joke on stage that works. Having done both, it is so much harder to make a show. And yeah, I think there's, like, a talent to both. And I think some people are incredible at online content, and it takes them a really long time, and they've, like, really honed a voice. I think that's very difficult. I think it's really difficult to do something that feels original, um, and feels as though it's really, like, speaks to them. But again, it kind of is that thing of, like, finding your voice and doing something that feels like it's true to you, because it's really easy to make something on social media that can do well, but is it the kind of stuff that you want to be making, is, like, another question. So, like, I think at the moment, like, I love working with Kathy, and we've done some videos together that have done really well, and I really enjoy that because we get on so well, so that making those videos doesn't feel like work at all. It's just, like, really fun. And if they do well or not, we don't really care because we had a really good time doing them. So I love that, and I think I'm like, would love to do more of it. But I think the world of, like, content creation, and it all kind of feels sort of slightly, I don't know, devoid of, like, the life of the stuff that you get on stage. It doesn't feel quite as alive, or quite as you can obviously also just be a bit like, well, this will work on the algorithm, so let's do this. And it feels as though you're kind of trying to, like, cheat stuff round, instead of just doing something that you want to do, which I think is a shame. And there's also so many people that I think just get so buried because they don't have loads of followers, which I think is wrong. However, I have really loved doing them. And also, like, it's nice to be able to be doing stuff at the moment that has done well, that we also like. I think that's a rare a rare situation to be in. So I definitely do more, but I think, again, just doing those shows this weekend and doing stuff with real people is the thing that I love most. And I like this. I don't think you can ever really take that away from the magic of being in a room with people. And yeah, I think that means more to me than if you get, like, millions of views. It sort of feels still, I don't know, sort of still feels quite empty. So yeah, I'd rather perform to like 4 people on like in a pub than I would get a million views, to be honest. I think that means more to me.
And in terms of kind of promotion, I mean, do you do much crossover? So, when you're touring or when you're at the Fringe or whatever, are you kind of pushing, find me here and I do this, I do that, that kind of stuff? Or does that feel a bit icky, for want of a better phrase?
Yeah, it's hard because also, like, I feel like technically I'm the kind of person that if I didn't do this stuff, I probably wouldn't be on social media. Like, I don't really I think I find having to, like, be really online is sometimes sends me a bit crazy. And also, I'm currently trying to promote so many different things at the moment. I don't really know what I'm like, there's so many shows on tour, and then I'm also doing these whips. And when people come to the whips, I'm like, "How did you know?" Because I can barely remember I had a whip. So the fact that you found this ticket is incredible because I don't even know where the ticket link is. So I need to become better at that. But also, like, it's I think with whips and those smaller shows, I kind of don't want to promote them too much because I don't want people to be coming thinking they're going to get like a full show. Because sometimes I've had that before where people will be like, "Oh, it's Clementine. We're going to come and see the show." And then they come and see a whip, which is me reading off a paper and trying to figure out what works. And they're like, "Oh, this can't have got 4 stars." God. And then I have to end being like, "We got to do this to make sure that the other thing works." um, so yeah, I think I need to get a bit more streamlined about my promotion. But I really do love the I love the fact that it feels as though it's one of those things that you can have control over. Like, that is the one good thing about social media and content creation is that, you really can just do stuff from your bedroom and you don't need anyone to give you permission to do it, which I love. And it feels like you get a bit of power and control over your career that way. But yeah, I need to get better at streamlining my like content creation.
And so, like, kind of away from the Clementine stuff, you had a part in the recent Alan Partridge series.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you find kind of being part of I guess it is a sitcom. It's kind of.
Yeah, it was scary. It was really scary. It was also the first thing I'd ever really done on TV, so I really didn't know what I was doing. Um, and it just kind of feels strange that you're sort of given I kind of felt like someone should come in and be like, "Wait, how did she get in here? Like, we don't like, how did she get in?" Because it all just felt a bit like, "God, I've just auditioned for the part and now I'm in he and now I'm here," but nobody's really told me how to do it. So I was like, "Maybe I need to go to drama school or something quick." Um, but it was yeah, I mean, it was really interesting. It was so cool, obviously, to, like, see how they dealt with the character and how they were, like, all working together to figure out how this character exists and where they can take the comedy, and it was, like, really inspiring to watch them work, actually. It was, really interesting because there's obviously the character, there's the actor, but then there's also, like, writers and directors, and everyone kind of helping to figure out what that character would do next was really cool. Yeah, it was, like, a really pretty inspirational experience, but it was also it kind of feels weird because then you just go home and you're like, "Oh, I guess I did do that today." It was really random. And then the next day you could just be doing anything. It's yeah, I find like this career so strange because you can on one week you can be doing like super exciting things and meeting all of these people, and the next week you're just sort of like wandering around Tesco and you're like, "Did that actually I'm not sure."
So another thing you've got coming up is film a film called Chinese Takeaway, which isn't. I kind of had a look at the description. They kind of talk a bit about kind of horror comedy, but it's mainly more of the thriller first and comedy within it rather than a straight comedy.
Yeah, it's a short film that I was asked to be in, written by someone who'd come to see my show. And I think the script is super fun, and I think I'm not entirely sure how they're gonna do it because it is quite, like, ambitious, the horror comedy of it all. But I also, like, I'm really looking to get more experience on screen, and I think anything that is and also there's something really nice about not having to worry about the content. Like, I'm obviously always doing stuff which is my idea, or like, especially when I'm performing on stage and I'm thinking constantly about like, does that work? Did that work? How did that look? And it's nice to just be kind of given the lines and do it and not have to worry about like every part of it all the time. So yeah, this year I'm hoping to just do more of that and like meet more people and collaborate and feel as though like I'm getting better at different skills and hopefully having a rest at the same time at some point.
I guess it's the kind of industry where you can have plans, you can have ideas, but where you actually end up going can be.
So random, yeah, and end up doing things where you're like, I have done and continue to be doing things where I'm like, "God, I didn't even know that existed," like, or meeting people that are doing things, and I do think a lot of it is, when you just sort of follow stuff and see where it takes you, and I'm kind of in a position at the moment where I'm just kind of excited to see where I could go. Like, I'm kind of just following whatever comes my way and just giving it my best shot really, which is, sometimes scary.
I mean, is it nice to kind of be able to ride two horses, as it were? You've got the Clementine stuff that August you're going to be in Edinburgh. I'd imagine then 2027 is a tour of that new show. So
Mm.
you've got some structure, but then you've still got plenty of space to play around in as well.
Yeah, it's nice as well because I think that, so like, for instance, if like, I've got friends who are actors, and so much of their career is out of their hands because it's all dependent on whether someone gives them an opportunity. So, like, they just are sort of throwing themselves at a wall, and if they don't get something, it's usually not because they weren't good, it's just it's all so random and out of your control that I kind of I like the fact that if I wanna do a show, I can just do it, and, like, no one's really gonna stop you. You can book a theatre and put it on, and I think that's the stuff that like, really care about, and if you get opportunities along the way, it's, like, really exciting, but those things are so random and few and far between that you're like, yeah, I kind of see it as, like, that's a kind of extra layer of things, but really, like, the more I can do on my own back and control, the nicer it is. But it is, yeah, it is sometimes funny because 'cause you're like, on the one day you could be, like, being taken to set in a car, and it's, like, so nice, and then the next day I'm getting ready in, like, a pub toilet to perform to 3 people, and it's like, this is not very different sort of days.
Thanks to Rosalie for coming onto the podcast. You can find out more about her Radio 4 show and where to see Clementine on tour across the country and more in the show notes. If you enjoyed this, check out our other episodes of variety comedians, musicians, authors, and others in creative industries talking about trying to make creativity pay. Thanks for listening.